guys, welcome back to SS Multimedia. My name is Naman Patil and I'm going to be teaching your lesson today. Today's lesson is going to be about estimating the product of a decimal and a whole number. Okay, and today's objective is to understand and learn how to estimate the product of a decimal and a whole number. It's basically in the title. Okay, so now I'm just going to underline the keywords and phrases in this objective. Okay, so the objective is to understand and learn how to estimate. So estimate the product of a decimal and a whole number. So we're going to be multiplying, as we can see, because product is the answer to a multiplication problem. And decimal and whole number are decimals and whole numbers. So we're going to be multiplying decimals and whole numbers together. Well, estimating decimals and whole numbers while multiplying. Okay? To get an estimated answer. Okay, and remember, estimation uses rounding. Always keep that in mind. Okay? So now, we're gonna get started. Okay? So, we're gonna have these 4 problems on this page, and we're gonna work each of them out. And we're not gonna find the actual answer, we're only gonna find the estimation. Okay? So, let's start working. So, to round this decimal, we know that 5 or more rounds up, 4 or less rounds down. So we know that 7 is more than 5, so 7 rounds up. So it won't become 0 and 0.10 or 0 and 1/10. It'll become 1 because you can't really have a 10. That'll just make it 1/10 again. Okay? So it's basically 1 times 7, which is 7. So we know that. So we finished that one. Let's move on to the next problem. 0.9 times 6. Okay, 0 and 9/10 times 6 equals blank. Okay, so 9 is greater than 5. So we know that 9 rounds up. 9 rounds up not to 0.10. It rounds up to 1. Okay, so now it's basically asking 1 times 6, and anything times 1 equals itself. So we know that the answer to this equation is 6. Okay, so now let's do the next problem. 0 and 4/10 times 5. Okay, so we know I need 4 or less rounds down. So using that, keeping that in our head, we know that 4 rounds down. So when 4 rounds down, it becomes 0. And then this equation is basically asking, the estimation equation is basically asking 0 times 5. And anything times 0 equals 0. So the answer here is 0. Okay? So now let's move on to the next problem. The next problem or the equation is 0.2 times 3. So we know that anything 4 or less rounds down. So we know that 2 rounds down. Okay? So, again, I'm only rounding these decimals because these whole numbers are easy to multiply with. Okay? So, again, I'm only going to round this decimal. So, 2 rounds down to 0. And again, we saw that 0 times something, or any number, equals 0. So, 0 times 3 equals 0. So, each of these is about, so this first problem is about 7, second problem is about 6, third problem is about 0, and third problem is about 0. Okay? So you always have to keep that in mind and make sure you're not doing this for a problem that's asking you for the answer. Okay? Remember, this is just the estimation. Okay? So let's do some more. Okay, so now we have 1 and 1/10 times 8. So we're now first going to look at the decimal, because again, these whole numbers are easy to multiply with. Okay, so 1 rounds down to 0. So now this will actually turn into a 0, which is basically 1.0 or 1. And then 1 times 8 equals 8. Okay, so this is about 8. Okay, so now let's move on to the next one. Okay, 5.7 times 2. 5 and 7 tenths times 2. Okay, so this 7 rounds up, we know that, and this 7 rounds up to 10. We're not going to put 10, we're just going to add another 1 to the whole numbers and turn this 7 into a 0. Okay, so it basically makes this here, 6.0, which is basically 6. And then we do 6 times 2, which is 12. So this equation equals about 12. Okay, now 3 and 90 hundredths times 7 equals blank. So we know that as any 0 after the decimal and before nothing, like, yeah. So this 0 would mean, this 0 doesn't mean anything to us right now. You just take that and chuck it into the trash can. We don't need that anymore. Okay, because this is basically 3 and 9 tenths, which is all we need to know. And we know that 9 rounds up to 10. So again, we're going to do the same thing that we did on this one to this problem. We're going to bring 1 to the 3, which makes it 4. We just put the decimal point, and then this decimal here, this 9, turns into a 0 because we took that 1 and moved it to the ones in the whole numbers place. Okay, so this becomes 0. So now it's asking for 4 times 7, which is 7, 14, 21, 28. So this equation, or this equation equals about 28. Okay, so now let's move on to the next problem. 3.94, or 3 and 94 hundredths times 5. So we don't need to know much here because we're going to start off with the first decimal, because remember, whole numbers are easy to multiply with. Okay, or pretty easy to multiply with, especially these whole numbers that are less than 10. Okay, so we're going to start off with the 9, which rounds up. Okay, so that is all we need to know. So since 90 is closer to 100 than it is to 0, or so for the hundreds place, we basically have 50 or more equal rounds up, 40 or less rounds down. All I did to that saying, or all I did to what I just said, was added a 0 to the end of the 5 and the 4. Okay, so to make it into the hundreds place, right? So then this 94 is more than 50, so it rounds up to 100. But we're not going to write 3.100 here. That won't make any sense. That'll basically be 3.1, or 3 and 1/10, which is not what we want. Because this, we know that is more than 1/10. So what we're going to do is add that 1 whole to this 4, which makes this decimal 0. So this is basically 4.00, which is basically 4. So this equation is asking 4 times 5. 4 times 5 is 20. So this equation equals about 20. Okay, so I know I like erasing all the work to make it look neater, but I'm just going to keep the work on so you guys can see what we did. Okay, so now let's move on and see what you guys have learned. Okay, since I've been doing all of these problems, I want you guys to take a turn and do this, or do these problems by yourself. So right now, pause this video and work on all of these problems. Come on now, I know you haven't paused the video. I'll be waiting, don't worry. Make sure you guys pause the video and keep down your estimations, not your answers. Okay? Remember how we rounded and we didn't need to round the whole numbers. Keep that in mind and do these problems. Okay, so you guys should be done with these problems. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the answers and work them with you. Okay, so 0 and 79 hundredths times 6. Okay, so now we know now we know that 50 or more in the hundreds place, 50 or more rounds up, 40 or less rounds down. Okay, so and you can keep saying that saying by adding zeros and like how much ever your decimal is. Okay, so for now it's only hundreds, so we're going to work with the hundreds. Okay, so we know 79 is more than 50, so it rounds up, which makes 100. We're not going to write 0.100 again. Okay, or we didn't even do that before. Okay, so we're not going to round it, write down 0.100. We're going to move that one, or that whole number, into the whole number area, like before the decimal point, and then keep this or change this to 0, 0, 0. So this number is rounded to 1.00. So all this is asking now is 1 times 6, which is 6. Anything times 1 equals itself. So this equation equals to about 6. Okay? Now let's move on to the next one. 0.4 times 6. 0 and 4 tenths times 6. Okay? So we know that 4 rounds down, because 4 or less rounds down. So this will equal 0. So this is basically asking 0.0 times 6. And 0.0 is basically 0. Anything times 0 equals 0. So 0 times 6 equals 0. Now let's move on to, or 0 and 4 tenths times 6 is about 0. Okay? So now let's move on to the next problem. The next equation. Whatever you want to call it. 3 and 25 hundredths times 5. Okay? So we know that 50 or more rounds up, 50 or less rounds down. I changed it to 50 instead of 5 because we're talking about the hundredths place here. Okay? So we know that 25 is less than 40, and 40 or less rounds down. So you know that 25 rounds down. Okay? So this decimal here becomes 0. That doesn't change this whole number here though. So it's basically, or it's rounded to 3, just 3. Okay? 3.0, just 3, basically 3. Okay, so this is basically 3 times 5, which is 15. So again, remember, this is just estimation. This is not the exact answer. Okay, so 3 and 25 hundredths times 5 equals about 15. Okay, so now, since we did that, let's move on to the next problem. 5 and 80 hundredths times 7. So remember this. This 0 is garbage. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't help us in any way, because it has no value to it in this position. So you can just take that, chuck it into the trash can. Basket. Okay? So, sorry about showing my Stephen Curry skills there, but let's just continue. Okay? So, 5 and 8. So, since we took out that 0, we can say it's 5 and 8 tenths times 7. We know that 8 rounds up because it's 5 or more. So that becomes a 0, and then we add a 1 more to this 5. So it's basically 6.00. Okay, so now it's basically asking 6 times 7. 6 times 7 is, let's check, 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42. 6 times 7 is 42. Okay, so 5 and 80 hundredths times 7 is is about 42. Okay, again, I'm not going to erase my work. Okay, I'm just going to let it be. Okay, so that was the video, but hold on. Wait, I just saw something. You guys aren't done here yet. Don't pause the video, don't leave, because I still have some very important work for you guys. So, that important work is in 3 steps. The first step is, remember to like this video, hit that like button, please. Second step is, share this video to everyone you know. And the third step is, remember to smash that subscribe button. And while you're there, hit that bell icon. And when I say smash it, please don't break the device you're on. That I would feel bad for that. Okay, so whatever. I guess that's it. See you guys later. Bye.